Everybody, and welcome back to the show. The Atheist Experience is live September the 1st, 2002. Thanks for joining us. I'm Martin, that's Ashley.
Hi.
How you doing? This show is sponsored by those friendly folks at the Atheist Community of Austin. We're a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. ACA has weekly meetings every Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. at Hot Jumbo Bagels, located downtown 307 West 5th Street. Between Guadalupe and Lavaca, except for the first Sunday of every month when we have our lecture series in the Longhorn Room of First Cafeteria in North Cross Mall. Now, this being 1st of September, we were at First today. I wasn't. I was tucked away in my wheel bed. But apparently, we didn't have a speaker today. It was discussion about the upcoming memorial gathering.
Yes, just about the memorial. It was a very low turnout. It was only about 10 or so of us there.
Because of a holiday weekend, probably.
A holiday weekend. I mean, First itself was just empty.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just a small little gathering, just talking about September 11th and.
Good.
So.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that announcement in just a minute. But let's see. For more information on our group, you can visit our fine website at atheist-community.org, where you will learn that we do among the various following things. Godless Gamers takes place Monday evenings at 7 o'clock p.m., home of Russell and Virginia Glasser. And that's a lot of fun. Turnout for that is like mushrooming every week. That's going to be a big thing. Yeah. Happy Hour, Atheist Happy Hour takes place, there I am, Thursday evenings about 7:38-ish at Antonio's Tex-Mex, which is at the intersection of Highway 183 and I-35, and that's an evening, sort of a dinner and gathering and drinks and stuff for folks like me who find it hard to make the morning meetings. Sometimes I actually turn up to Happy Hour like once a month or so. Let's see. The University Atheists and Agnostics are a new registered UT student organization, UT being, of course, University of Texas, at Austin. They meet 4 o'clock on Fridays, and I am told that their first meeting had 25 people at it, which is great. Going great. A good start for this group. The group has started up by our very own Charles Tabany. Andy Roberts, another one of our UT student members, is part of the group, too. They had a table out at the West Mall, and so next week on the show, we will either have Charles or Andy on the program, and they'll talk about the adventures of the UAA, their first couple of weeks, and if they've had any amusing encounters at their West Mall table. That should be the most fun of it. But apparently they meet 4 p.m. Fridays and Parlin, room 310.
Yes.
I think I had some classes in Parlin, but I can't remember because it was so long ago. But great guns for the UAA. We're really proud of you guys, and it's about time that UT had a very active and vibrant atheist and agnostic student group. Good job. Well, what else? Nonprofits is our internet radio show hosted by Alvin and the Chipmunks. I mean Jeff D., Mary McManamy, Vic Farrow, and Russell Glasser, which takes place Saturday afternoons at 2 o'clock p.m. at the atheistnetwork.com website. And they had some really funny technical problems yesterday, but
it was meant to be done on purpose. We're trying to get the show done in half the time with the same amount of content.
That's it. So it's like a quantum thing. We're trying to compress
compress it all down.
No, but it's a really good show. It's like I said, it's at the atheistnetwork.com website. It's an MP3 stream now, which is a lot better than Real Player. And there is a live chat room feature that you can use to interact with the program. And it's 90 minutes of news analysis and just discussion among the folks there on the show. Mary's on it, like we said, Jeff D. A lot of folks that you will remember from this program, Vic. So a lot of fun to listen to every Saturday, 2 o'clock p.m. And the archived files of past shows are on our website. On the radio show page. So check that out. Okay, let's see. Godless Americans March on Washington is still happening, as I understand, November the 2nd. That's a Saturday in Washington, D.C. Some people in our group are definitely planning on making the trip. I will see if I can. I've got this thing now that I'm working on that might conflict with that, but still, for information on that, you can go to godlessamericans.org. And last but far from least is our secular memorial event scheduled for September 11th. Here is just the text of our press release. Atheist Community of Austin has announced plans to conduct a non-religious commemoration of the lives lost in last year's terrorist attacks. The public memorial gathering, scheduled from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, September 11th, will be held at Woolridge Square, 900 Guadalupe Street in downtown Austin. So this will be September 11th is going to be a big day-long exercise in memorials about the terrorist attacks, we know, and most of the public ones will feature some sort of religious element. We're kind of expecting that. This is a thing that we're throwing for non-religious citizens if you just want to get together and memorialize the event without anything in the way of, without having to listen to prayers or prayer vigils or things like that. This is just an opportunity for non-religious American patriots to do their part. So that's happening Wednesday, September, a week from this Wednesday, and 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., Woolridge Square downtown. Please try to be there. It'd be very nice. Okay, I think that takes care of announcements. So let's see what's happening in the world. Ashley.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I got a couple of stories here. First one, gene separates early humans from ape. A gene that separates humans from the apes and other animals seemed to have disappeared from humans up to 3 million years ago, just before they first stood upright, researchers said on Monday. Most animals have the gene, but people do not, and it may be somehow involved in the expansion of the brain, the international team of researchers said. The gene controls production of sialic acid, a kind of sugar. The researchers wrote in an advanced online issue of the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The mutation occurred after our last common ancestor with bonobos, pygmy chimpanzees, and before the origin of present-day humans. Neanderthal skeletons, the oldest early humans from whose DNA has also been obtained, also lack the sugar. Varkey said the role of the gene is not fully understood. The gene itself is involved in changing the surfaces of all cells in the body, he said. The surface of all cells in the body is covered with sugars. This one is missing only in humans. It may help influence how viruses and bacteria first infect cells, now cancer cells, interact. There are some clues that it might have something to do with brain plasticity. So
wow, so that's a very important discovery.
A single gene could be a big part.
Well, we've already seen how that has occurred, and like when they detected the UBX-Hox gene, where they in arthropods, determining like how you get from just some crawling, how suddenly wings pop out, right? And they discovered the specific gene that triggers that sort of thing. Now we found something that seems to be along the same lines in early humans, which is the specific thing that split us off from the family tree of the rest of the primates.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of exciting.
So we're talking about a single gene here.
Science marches on,
That could make a big difference. So.
And bravo to CNN.com for having that article. It's nice to get some good positive science news in a mainstream forum.
Yeah.
Especially with all the movements to reinforce creationism nowadays, just so that there is always solid science, that the actual scientific research that's going on, consistently
still gets a decent voice out there.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Exactly. So.
Okay.
So more to learn, and it should be very exciting.
Yes, as always.
Cool.
Okay. Religious display stays up for now. Displays with the Ten Commandments will remain posted, at least for now, in courthouses in Mercer and Rowan counties after a federal judge denied a motion seeking their immediate removal.
Okay, what state is this in?
This is Kentucky.
Okay.
Forster said he would not rule on the Mercer and Rowan cases until the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals decided an appeal on the removal of the Ten Commandments from courthouses in McCreary and Pulaski counties and schools in Harlan County. David Freeman, a lawyer of the American Liberties Union, said that this was the first time a judge has ruled against a motion for preliminary injunction in a Ten Commandments case in Kentucky.
Okay.
So. But Bart McQuarrie of Harrodsburg, an ACLU member who filed suit against the Mercer display, said in a statement after the hearing that Forster's decision is not the last word. This should by no means be viewed as a loss for me or the ACLU. He called Forster's decision the exception and not the rule, adding that federal judges have overwhelmingly ruled in the ACLU's favor in cases such as this one.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, as you know, the more of these cases pop up, the resolutions of these cases are going to determine how future cases are played out.
Yeah. And there's so many of them where it's already been ruled that they must come down.
Can't have it on public land.
And that's happened so many times. So I don't think that's the end of that story.
No,
hope not. So
interesting. Oh, more.
Okay, and the final one of the day. Earth formed faster than estimated. Scientists have found evidence that Earth made its final step to planet status about 30 million years earlier than previous research had suggested. Working independently, two groups of scientists analyzed meteorites that contained telltale clues about planetary formation and compared rocks from Earth. Both teams reached the same conclusion. Earth's metallic core formed about 30 million years after the solar system's birth. And
I think they originally thought it was about twice that long, right? So
yes, about 60.
Yeah.
So the findings contrast 1995 research that suggests Earth's core formed 60 million years. Generally speaking, this means that all the planets, not just Earth, formed much faster than we had assumed. The refined figures yielded a precise date, 4.53 billion years ago. That marks unofficial status as a planet.
Yeah, and what makes, when the core forms, that's when you've got a planet.
Yes.
Basically. And then at that point, it's all about the crust in the mantle.
Yeah, just cooling down. And
yeah. It was still ages and ages before anything remotely resembling, a habitable environment.
Yes.
Came about. But,
well, yeah.
Yeah.
I think life started forming about 3 billion years.
Right. So.
After. Oh, well, that's after the planet formed.
Sure, yeah.
So this is 4.53 billion years.
Just when we got a core.
But that's, I don't know if that would be.
So that could be, once again, as I say, that's a date we could end up finding that the whole solar system is consistent now with that time frame.
Yeah. Quicker expectation by 30 million years.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, well, what's 30 million years?
I know, when you're talking about 4.5 billion, what's 30?
Chump change. Nothing to it.
But it just shows a little accuracy going on.
Yeah. See, it also shows, with this, and of course with the discovery of the gene in chimps, right? Is that you always learn new things in science.
Yeah.
Okay. Science is not like religion where you're just handed this thing and said, this is inviolable, believe this, and don't question it under any circumstances. We're always learning new stuff and finding out that there are more things to know. And
it's not, as many people also point out, that science is always wrong and always coming up with new stuff, and so how can you trust any of it?
Yeah.
They're not contradicting anything here.
Yeah.
But even if it's coming up with a bit more refinery here, coming up a bit closer to the actual what really happened.
Yeah. But even if it did, that would not invalidate the scientific method as being the most reliable means of getting knowledge.
Exactly.
But it's all very exciting, and there's just shows there's more to learn. Yep. Okay. Well, a whole lot new. There's a new Skeptic magazine out on stands today. I just got this yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to really dig through it. But I like the cover. It's all about theologians must confront the concept of extraterrestrial life. Now, this would be interesting, wouldn't it? What if we actually found microbes in the Martian soil, or on Europa, or wherever it is that we're anticipating that we may in fact find traces of life?
Yeah.
Now, of course, scientifically, this will all be very easily dealt with, right? We understand the processes by which organic molecules do their thing. Yeah. Okay, but theologians, on the other hand, are going to have a very unusual time sort of trying to fit this into an established religious orthodoxy that states that our invisible friend made us in his image and wished it all into being in 6 days' time, and he all has a divine plan, and we're what it's all about. Suddenly, if you get microbes swimming around in some sea on some distant planet,
all of a sudden a meteorite splashed them out, and
or
here they are.
What could happen? Someone will make some sort of elaborate reinterpretation of Scripture to sort of fit that in, right?
Oh, of course.
The nice thing about how loosely it's all done. But anyway, but Skeptic Magazine is always worth reading. Very fun. Some other things. They have a special section on thinking skills. How to critically think, and sometimes how even a scientific education does not always guarantee good critical thinking.
So, of course,
yeah. So that's fun. So, how's your week been?
Not too bad. It's been a very good week, a very tiring weekend, and it's going to continue.
Yeah, you and me both. I got into I joined a gym again this week for the first time in years. and on Wednesday, and I hit it hard. I just went in. I used to work out like 4 days a week, right? You know, about like 95, 96, 98, around then. Got out of it, went back, hit hard. Now that was Wednesday, right? Friday.
Wham!
It was like scratching my nose was a two-handed activity. Okay, like I could get this far, and then I had to kind of do this and do this. So it's like but man, it feels good. I'll tell you. So we'll see.
So you haven't gone back yet.
If I come in, just some weekend like this, and I'm help, and you have to like wheel me in on a dolly.
Here we go, Martin.
You understand what's up? Yeah. Get my old dribble cup or something. Yeah, that's been a good week. Anyway, this is our show. That's our number to call us live and ask us questions and stuff. And we're just killing time until calls rack up. Our website, though, atheist-community.org. If this is your first time watching the program, have a look at the website because we have a very helpful fact page. And the reason I mention this is because in the last couple of weeks of the show, we have been getting a lot of first-time viewers who channel surf and hit us, and they're like, ugh, who are these guys? And so we've just been getting a lot of the routine questions seem to get every single week. Somebody hasn't watched the show before, and they hit us with a question that we dealt with in detail the previous week.
How can you possibly be moral?
So like, well, or whatever, anything like that. Yeah. That seems to be a common one. But we have a fact page on our website at atheist-community.org where we have collected pretty much all the most common questions that callers hit us with on the program, like that one. A lot of people just are completely nonplussed as to why anyone would not want to believe in a God in the first place. Well, we discuss those things, and that will help you get sort of iron out some basics. Yeah. And but this show serves two purposes. We're here as, for one thing, an outreach to other unbelievers in the Austin area. And again, we're here also to believers call us up, and we explain to them how it is and why it is that we as atheists think the way we do. Because, needs to say, they quite often get a great deal of distorted information about what unbelief really is all about from their religious leaders. Yeah. So, we'll go ahead and take our first call, and we'll just let the rest of them rack up.
Actually,
did you want
to? I think that might have changed.
Well?
Because that was up there first, and then the light started blinking again.
Yeah. Okay. Line one's okay? Okay, well, we'll just start the calls. Conrad, I think we have on line one, so let's see what we have to talk about. Hi. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, hi, you're on the air.
Hi, I was wondering if I should be a Christian or be an atheist. I'm not really sure right now.
Well, it depends. Do you believe in God?
I don't know.
Okay, well, that's fair enough.
That would probably be agnostic.
Yeah.
What's agnostic?
An agnostic is somebody who is sort of admits that the knowledge of whether or not God exists you cannot possibly really know whether or not a God actually exists, but you're not committing yourself one way or the other, presumably.
Oh. Yeah. Do you have to be balding to be atheist?
Well, I don't know.
It helps.
Yeah. Ashley did his on purpose, so, yeah.
And that was accidental?
Well, back in April, I shaved my head and decided it wasn't the thing for me, so. Anyway, so anything else?
No, I think that was it.
All right, man. Have a good weekend.
All right, thanks.
Take care. Okay, that's right. Who's on two? We're still finding out.
Oh.
So, continue.
It helps the cosmic rays penetrate my brain.
Jeremy is on what? Two? Jeremy on line 2. Hi, you're on the air.
Hey, Martin, Ashley, how you guys doing?
We're doing fine. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, I think you just answered my question. Mm-hmm. I was going to ask, do you understand what I'm saying if I say that all human beings are agnostics? I was thinking that to be agnostic was to actually be without knowledge of God. Mm-hmm. And I was saying to myself, is that not all of us? So,
I would agree with that,
So
actually.
Could you not be an agnostic Christian?
I know you can be an agnostic theist. Agnostic theists are people who, like you say, they will say, well, I admit that I don't know, but then after that, just for whatever personal reasons they might have, they'll decide to go ahead and believe that maybe there is something up there anyway. I've met a lot of people like that, where they admit, look, I don't know, I can't possibly prove it, but, they just have a gut feeling or something like that. So that's an agnostic theist, sure. But you're right, I would agree with you that every person alive, if they were to be, honest about it, would have to admit that they were agnostic to some degree, because nobody knows, right? It hasn't been proved. And so if it hasn't been proved, nobody really knows. All you can really do at this point is look at whatever evidence you're presented with and decide to believe or not believe accordingly.
Right.
It also does depend, though, on what your definition of agnostic. Originally, when I had first read about it, it meant that the person does not know for sure, one way or the other, whether is or is not a God. And so it's just doubt, look into it, that type of thing. A couple people in the group, though, subscribe to a slightly different one, which means that they cannot know. And I'm not too sure exactly where that idea came from. I haven't seen too many other uses of it like that, to where, if you're agnostic, you believe that you cannot possibly know one way or the other whether is or is not God. I don't believe that that's the case.
Unless, of course, God revealed himself to you.
Then what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
I mean, how would that take place? I mean,
mass hallucination.
Yeah, I mean, anybody could be.
Realistically, there.
Right.
I'm definitely of the opinion that you can know one way or the other. Well, you can know for a fact that there is a God. I would expect. Know for a fact that there is not a God.
If one existed, there's no reason to assume that it would not be a thing that would be detectable in the same way that other stuff that we've detected in the universe is detectable. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's going to be some different beast.
Sure. I don't know. I mean, if it exists, it should be detectable by some means.
Okay.
Just like we can detect a light outside the visible spectrum. We can detect all sorts of things that quantum physics that aren't things that you can just see with your eyes. Mathematically, you can use you can deduce how certain scenarios would play out.
Yeah.
Given what a certain set of initial conditions are. So we have very many different means of detecting things that just aren't readily available to our immediate senses. So it seems to me that if a deity exists, there should be some means to detect that deity. But again, if we're talking about some all-powerful being that loves us, there seems to me that there's no reason at all why that being wouldn't just completely reveal his existence unambiguously and say, "Hi, here I am," and have done with it. And that, for one thing, it would make atheism a moot point, and the human race could sort of get about its business, after that. But so that has always been an aspect of curiosity to me. But there's our fact page address, as I mentioned earlier. But it has always been a curious question to me to point out. It's like, if this being is the Christian definition of God, seems to me there would be no reason for that being not to simply reveal his existence completely unambiguously, so there's no question, and then we just get on with our business.
Yeah.
As a species, I don't know. So.
Right. And suppose that the Christian God actually does exist. And suppose he actually did reveal himself to the prophets, and the prophets were not simply believing.
Well, why just the prophets? I mean, why not Joe Blow out on the street?
Why not down Main Street?
Yeah.
Right. I think many Christians have this idea that the prophets actually heard the voice of God. Oh. And whereas people nowadays, if someone tells you they've heard the voice of God, you'll dismiss them entirely.
Well, right, but I mean, why shouldn't we dismiss the prophets entirely? I mean, again, if God is only revealing himself to these men, then all we have to go for, in terms of evidence, is the word of these guys.
Right. And
why would I be any more inclined to take them seriously when they say, "I've heard God," than I would be if some homeless fellow, or anybody, just today in a modern day setting, were to say the same thing. As you said, most people kind of go, "Uh-huh." But so again, it just seems a being that's all powerful should be able to come up with some means of just revealing his existence unambiguously to the human race as a body, and then that sort of settles the issue. Yeah. And when we don't have, there's no reason to have had all of these centuries of religious wars and jihads and medieval churches burning heretics at the stake and things like that we've had. Seems like it could have spared the human race a lot of misery throughout history if this were just a question that were dealt with.
True.
I mean...
True. And I say that, as an individual, I have to assume that no human being has privileged knowledge of, what happens in the next world or the nature of God. And it seems to me that many, many Christians don't understand this basic aspect of fairness. Because, for example, if you were alive in Christ's day and you actually witnessed a miracle, and it wasn't any, sleight of hand or magic trick, if you actually witnessed it, that would be proof of his divinity. And then you don't have to debate about how to believe. It's almost like God made it very easy for you to believe. It's like he did you a favor, because I have not witnessed any kind of divinity, any supernatural events. And if I did witness something like that, then I would be able to believe. But until something like that happens, until God reveals himself, I cannot believe. I literally can't make myself buy it.
Yeah. It's the same. It falls along the lines of needing extraordinary evidence for an extraordinary claim.
Yes.
It's all well and good to say that there are some things that you might not need that sort of direct, very concrete empirical evidence to prove the point to you. But if someone were to say, "Oh, I talked to ghosts," or I rode on a UFO, or there's this invisible being who's all powerful and magical and made the whole universe, well, those constitute extraordinary claims. They're of a whole magnitude higher than, "Oh, I had lunch yesterday with Fred." I mean, that's not an extraordinary claim. And so, the quality of evidence has to be that much stronger than you would get for just some sort of everyday ordinary claim. I think that a lot of people ask me what it would take to make me believe, and we used to deal with that as a show quite frequently. And I say it would be a process. First, I would have to have some sort of good, strong evidence that, for lack of a better word, magic was real.
Yeah.
Okay. In other words, that supernatural occurrences, miraculous events took place that openly defied everything that we know about the natural laws of how the universe operate.
Yeah.
And that there was simply no way to explain those events other than through some kind of supernatural agency, right?
Yeah.
And then you'd have to work it from there. Because again, you're right. If you had something, you pointed out hallucinations.
Yes.
I mean, if you see some big face in the sky opening up like Monty Python the Holy Grail, right? Just the clouds part. That could be evidence of a divine encounter, or you could just be crazy. So it's a tough one.
I think Jeff had a good take on this one, which I kind of agree with. I don't know exactly what it would take to make me believe, because yes, there could be problems. I may be seeing things, I may be dreaming it, I could be on drugs, who knows what. But an all-powerful God should be able to figure out what it would take to make me believe.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
All-powerful and all-knowing means smarter than me.
Yeah,
right?
he can do a better job than I could.
Yeah,
right.
He should be able to figure it out.
And just one other thing is, I was thinking, living in this modern day with all of our fruits of science that we see now, it seems to me like I have more difficulty believing than someone who lived 20 centuries ago, because that long ago the world was poorly understood, and I feel like man's ignorance was conducive to him. It sort of prepared him for believing things, because even 10 decades ago, man didn't know that the heart is a pump.
Yeah.
And 100 decades ago, we thought that blood was this magical life stuff, because if you lost enough of it, you died.
Yeah. The humors, or whatever they called them back then. So that's an excellent point. I mean, when you have a pre-scientific culture, it is natural for people in that culture to try to explain their world by whatever means possible.
Sure.
And so that is sort of that's the birth of religion there. Or what becomes maybe not religions, but various superstitions, right?
Yeah.
Like astrology.
Yeah.
Astrology actually started out as the most sophisticated science there was back in, say, Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
Because they, I guess the priesthood at that time, who were also like the scholars, saw that, okay, we know that the moon affects things and the sun helps crops grow, so why wouldn't it be that these other little lights in the sky affect things on our planet too? That's how astrology came about.
Yeah.
And that was actually the most sophisticated science they had 4,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, the fact it's still around is kind of kooky, but we don't need it anymore. But it does show, that the point you made is really good. That's how, when you don't have that knowledge, that's how you seek to explain the world.
Right, and where is heaven? Before the space age, you could say, it's up there, just beyond the clouds, stupid. And then we made it out into space and we saw for ourselves. No, there's nothing here. So
There's absolutely nothing here.
And now there are various different definitions of it, of course. They're just, heaven is described as anything from this just a state of ultimate grace where you're one with God.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the fundamentalists still believe that it's an actual physical place you go to.
Yep, 15,000 miles on a cube
that's
on
right.
the sides.
Was it Billy Graham's, one of his nieces, says that it's a 15,000 mile square cube.
Yep.
Where everyone has like a nice little...
Yeah, their own little 75-acre lot. We all got a mansion, yep.
So, I mean, that's what you get.
yeah, are you guys familiar with Joseph Campbell?
Yeah, some. I haven't read The Power of Myth and all that.
Yeah, he's a big fan of that heaven and hell being spiritual states. And he would say something like, when a man is entirely blissful or when a man is completely miserable, the finite moment becomes eternal in the sense that time falls away. And so he's got this metaphorical interpretation of sacred texts, and that's the only way I could buy it. But when I read something like the Bible, and it does read as if heaven and hell are physical places, so I think that it's a mythological interpretation is fast and loose with the intended meaning of that text. But I do like the idea of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting to sort of understand what function it serves, right? I mean, I think heaven or afterlives in general were ideas that I think came about to make people be less afraid of dying.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, I think, originally at the root of it. Now, what's interesting about the Christian heaven is I think that there is, it is discussed through, as if it's a physical place. Like you said, there's one passage, I think, actually in Revelation where we get the only thing resembling an actual physical description of heaven in the whole Bible. And it's really weird, okay? It's like very kind of scary and creepy. There is...
For heaven?
Oh, well, apparently one of John or whoever wrote the Revelation, his visions, right, was of this cloudy landscape, right, with the huge throne on it. And it says there's the being sitting on the throne, what he described resembled jasper, which seems to mean that God is green, okay, if you think of it that way. And it says, and then constantly flying around this throne are these beings that are like covered in wings and eyes and stuff. And they're constantly singing God's praises. And there's like thunder and lightning going on everywhere. And you're like, that's kind of scary.
I know, that is kind of scary,
yeah, that's total nightmare fuel there. It's sort of like, I think I'll check out now. So, it's certainly not the cube on the sides with the nice little suburban house in it. That's certainly definitely a long shot from that. But you're right. I think that overall these beliefs came about to just make people trying to understand their world better, trying to feel better about the way that life doesn't always deal you a fair hand, that we ultimately die, and that we try. And so it's a way of trying to make life meaningful. Yeah. Because, it's understandable why people would think, oh, well, if we're born to die, what's the point? And they're trying to get a point out of it all. Yeah.
And it does kind of suck that we do die.
Sure it does.
I'm not really happy with that decision there.
But there it is. It's
so I've got to deal with that one way or another.
Yeah. So. But you bring up a lot of good points.
Yeah, and guys, you just reminded me of one other thing, and then I'll let you go.
Sure.
I think the so-called Thomas Gospel was discovered when they discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls. And if I'm correct, I think that was this century, or the 20th.
I believe so.
And I don't know about the Thomas Gospel, but Campbell talks a lot about it, and he says that supposedly Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is spread upon the earth, and men do not see it, which supports the idea of Jesus being this teacher who was not divine, but he was almost like the teachers and the gurus from the East today, from Asia, the very spiritual kind of thing. And another thing was like when Jesus walked out on water, he was so completely spiritually fulfilled and enlightened that, and so his soul moving out over water is symbolic of something, because water is symbolic of the giver of life or whatnot, all that kind of nature stuff.
Yeah.
So, and Campbell, of course, he has all these different interpretations of the symbols But if you were to go to Christians about this kind of stuff, they could not be receptive to it because it's so different from what the church.
Yeah.
They
have
they go more for the literal view rather than saying, look, this is a nice analogy to something else here. So,
well, because they realize that I think the minute you start accepting the idea that any part of it at all isn't literal and can be interpreted metaphorically, then sort of where do you stop?
Yeah.
You don't really have any kind of a rational basis to say, oh, well, this tale of Noah or Jonah and the whale or what have you is simply meant to be a metaphor. It's poetic and it's meant to symbolize like the flood myth, which is all about redemption and death and rebirth and that sort of thing. No, it had to actually happen, because if you're willing to say, well, that's just a mythical metaphor, then there's no reason not to say, well, the whole book could potentially be that. And I don't think a lot of Christians want to go there.
Right, and with 60 different writers, who knows?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, great talking to you, and feel free to watch anytime.
All right, thanks.
Very good. Just a follow-up on one point that he made, too, where he talked about Jesus having similar attitudes towards some Eastern philosophers. Saw a thing on, it was either the Discovery Civilization channel or one of like the history channels, where it was a program speculating on that sort of missing 30 years or so in Jesus' life before he... he's born in the manger, and then...
Yeah, got a couple stories about his childhood.
We
and then
see
all
him
of a sudden,
at 12 years old. Talking to... And then he vanishes a while, and then suddenly he's 30 years old, walking around, doing miracles and being Jesus.
Yeah.
And one person, and of course, it's not to say that his point of view is accept ours, but one person speculated that it's possible Jesus might have gone east and studied with some early Buddhists.
Wow.
And brought Buddhist ideas back to Judea. Now, of course, this is all just, this is someone's speculation.
Yeah.
But he did, like Jeremy just did, he pointed out similarities in the whole idea of like heaven on earth and trying to achieve a more spiritually pure state.
The whole 40 days of fasting thing.
Sure, exactly. So there are similarities. And of course, Confucius is credited with what we know as the Golden Rule, 500 years before Jesus is said to have said it.
Yeah.
So there are similarities between a lot of the mythic cultures of East and West. Interesting. Well, who do I take next? Mike on one?
Yep.
It's been waiting a long time. Mike, you're on the air.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for waiting.
Hey, I just have a question, because first of all, I have a problem with knocking people, so I'm not going to knock you. I just kind of want to understand, what is it that y'all believe or don't believe in? What is the thing don't believe that God exists, or you're like, you just have to prove it to me, or, help me understand what you guys do.
That's basically it. We atheists are people who don't believe in the existence of a God.
Right. And
if I'm perfectly ready to believe in anything that I'm provided with really good, strong evidence for. So yeah, I'm open-minded to the idea, but since I haven't encountered that sort of evidence yet, or up to this point, and since there are certain things about particular religious beliefs, like the Christian faith and some others, that just don't make sense, I can say, well, my conclusion about those is I don't believe those.
Yeah. But we're not actually here to convert anybody, which I think was kind of a point you kind of sort of brought up. We're not here to convert anybody. We're just here mostly for education, just to let everybody know this is what atheists think, and this is who we are.
Yeah.
Now, if you like that, great. If you don't, hey, call us up and ask us something.
Well, because, I say back in the day, atheists were like hard, from when we used to hear stories about them, it was like, if you believed in God, you were like jumped on or something like that, and I know it's a long time from that. But my whole thing is, I excuse me. To me, I can't prove that there's a God. I don't think no one can prove there's a God. It's just what you believe in and what you study in. And I feel like, me, myself, I'm a Christian as far as Christ-like. I have no religion, because I feel like all kinds of religions, they go through war with each other, and that's not God. That's not godly, because God didn't put us here to compete on, who can praise him the best or whatever. I just feel like if he gave you two choices, you can follow his path or another path. But my whole thing is, if you want to know something, you study it, and if you study it, you know what to expect. That's how God has revealed himself to me, and I can't make anybody say, well, God showed himself to me, so you got to believe in it. But it's just I apply more of my time trying to seek him.
Yeah.
Just if I was, for a test, or if I'm studying for a test, I can look through a book just to look through a book. But if I'm trying to find an answer, I'm going to apply myself to that answer, and that's what I'm going to look for. And eventually, in the test, I'm going to pass that test. And He showed Himself to me for the simple fact I get in the Word, I study, I seek and I pray. And no doubt, I'm not a perfect person. I fall off, but I got sense enough to go repent and do my thing. And God does show Himself to me. He showed Himself to me through my children, and even through my lifestyle, my own lifestyle. And a lot of situations that I've been through, I can't blame nobody but God. As far as my mom being out there on drugs, and I watched my brother get killed. I've seen cousins die around me, and I've never got harmed. And things that I've done in the past, I have friends that gotten in trouble for doing it, and I've never gotten touched. And God's kind of given me my calling through that. Saying, well, you need to go to to the streets, and not necessarily tell people about me, but also tell people there's a better way than what they're doing.
Sure.
Well, you looked into it and you found God. We have a couple people in the group who looked into it and they found the exact opposite.
Okay.
The old co-host of the show actually was in ministry. He was in a theological school.
David Clark was in the seminary. He was
studying to be a priest.
He performed baptisms. He did the whole thing. But he had a bunch of questions that he said just really weren't being answered and never ended up getting answered.
Yeah.
I understand that it's a very personal thing. And that's fine, and we have no beef with people, believing in what they want to believe. We think that that's a right that people have, and we're fine with that. Part of the reason for organizations like ours is that, quite apart from you, there are a great many people in the Christian community who don't quite have this live and let live attitude about it.
Right.
And they want to see that, so there are attempts at passing laws and things that make a specific, not just a general, but a very specific religious point of view expressed like in the public forums, whether you have it in government or in schools or in things like that. And we don't think that's right. I personally think that it's the job of the parent to, for example, if you have a child, it's your job as the parent to determine what that child's religious instruction is going to be. It's not the government's job.
Right.
And so if you had, say, a family of Buddhists or Jews or Wiccans, and they were in a public school that their tax money goes to fund, and we're going to that school receiving specific, not just Christian instruction, but very specific fundamentalist Baptist, Protestant Christian instruction. That's not fair. That isn't right. And of course, unbelievers being at the bottom of that totem pole really sort of get looked down on. And so that's why you have organizations like ours, and that's why occasionally when believers find that they encounter unbelievers, that, atheists can be kind of, but, and that's, and people shouldn't be like that, but it's sure, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that, it's just so frustrating sometimes. And people are giving vent to their frustrations, but what we just want to do on the show is let people know that there's no real need for that, and that a reasoned discourse is the best way to go about it.
Right, and another point too. You said earlier, a lot of people on the show did the try to see God thing, and I'm not pointing out to everybody, and if anybody gets offended, I apologize. But at the same token, a lot of people, especially, they seek God through people. And I'm sorry, no doubt, everybody have faults, and a lot of people say, well, I don't see God because I believe He was Christ-like, and I seen Him do something off the deep end, and I just can't believe there's a God, and it's like the reason they don't see Him because they really don't seek Him for themselves. It's like they look at what someone else says and just kind of go off of that, and then they blame it on God. Well, God told me to go this way, and God told me to go that way, and if the person that they're looking to get to God falls off, then they believe, okay, there's no God, and they going about their business, And I'm not saying everybody does that, but just my advice to everybody. I can't tell you what you're going to see. If He going to reveal Himself to you, I can't tell you that. I don't know. But if those are your reasons for doing it because you're looking at a certain person that's doing it and you want to be like that person and say you're being Christ-like or whatever, then you'll never see God because you have to have your own relationship. You have to have your own desires and you have to push your own way to get to God.
Yeah. I would say that there are a number of reasons why someone may choose to believe or not to believe. I can't point to any particular one as to why I'm not a believer, and I don't think Ashley can either. I have using though the specific example that you mentioned. I have a problem with the idea of an all-powerful, all-loving God. And He has people on earth who are His representatives. Okay, let's just. This is purely and just. This is just an example. I'm just talking.
Right. Go ahead.
So let's say you end up having this horrible thing like the whole priest molestation scandal that we had several months ago.
Yeah.
Really bad thing, right? Now, these guys are at least within the now, regardless of what you think about Catholicism, these guys are the leaders of their church. They're the priests. They're the people who are supposed to represent God on earth, and they do this thing. And I have a problem with the idea of a God who's all-powerful and all-knowing. So if he knows everything, he'll know the future, and he'll know that, these guys are going to go bad. And yet he allows it to happen, and he allows people to get hurt, when it seems to me that if no one else, his own public representatives on the planet, how could he possibly let them misrepresent him in any way? It doesn't make sense that a God would be that irresponsible about his own representatives on earth going nuts.
Like I said, we have our choices. You got this path and you have that path.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of the path, the outcome is going to be the same. You can choose the right path. This is just my thoughts. You can choose the right path and follow God and go through your storms, and you come out all right. Or you can be like Jonah, so to speak, and you can go your own personal way and get swallowed in the belly and messed up or whatever, and come out. But the whole thing is the word is going to get out there. Now, people, again, like you said,
but these were priests.
Yeah,
these men chose God.
I have an issue. I don't really believe somebody can go to school and just learn about this. If God called you, he called you.
Right.
You might go to school and get a better understanding and interpretation, but if he called you, he called you. I don't just wake up one morning and say, you know what, man, I just want to be a priest. I'm just going to go to school, and this is what I'm going to study.
Yeah.
Because I can't honestly say God called me to do that. This is something I want to do.
So you're suggesting that the priests who did these things weren't actually called. I'm
not going to say they weren't called, but again, it's biblical. It's not. It doesn't say nowhere in the Bible that man should lay with children. So, or man should mess with children, or woman should mess with children. I mean, it simply tell you, man shouldn't lay with man as they would with woman, and so on and so forth. It's never said. So I can't even say that's biblically. That was their own choices. So I'm not going to say that they weren't called.
But I just have a hard time with God allowing it.
I have a hard time with it, but I'm not going to say God allowed it. I mean, no doubt it happened, and those priests were served, and God, they were served their whatever happens to them is going to happen, but now it's up to the people. Now the people got to be more cognizant. Parents have to be more cognizant of what they let their children do. Parents have to get more involved in the children instead of just letting them pass them on to somebody else.
But again, remember, the somebody else that they were being passed along to were priests. They were religious leaders. They were the men. They weren't just strangers. They were men who were thought to be the representatives of this perfect, all-loving deity. And under the protection of those men, this horrible thing happened. And it seems to me, I just have this problem of a God looking down on all of this from his heavenly throne and not doing anything to protect these children, not doing anything to let his own representatives, his own employees, as it were, on earth know, hey, look at what you're about to do.
And even if you're not Catholic, even if you are, you believe that, it's some other God, he's still powerful. He can still stop it. Why didn't he do something? It's irresponsible.
You understand? You got to look at what they were. I mean, you can't say what they were really called to. You got to look at their heart. Did they really know God? Did they?
It doesn't matter what the people knew. Yeah. It matters what God knew.
Well, that's all.
If he's real and if he knew this was going on.
We have to go through things. Everything is the.
Well, why did those children have to go through being molested? Those children didn't have to go through being molested.
No, they didn't have to go through being molested. Nobody has to go through it. But
Precisely.
In a situation, what do you do? Do you fall God? If they did know God, that would have still happened. I mean, it happens to people that don't know God, regardless.
But God knew.
But we're talking about God knowing these crimes are going to take place and not doing what would be the morally responsible thing, which is protect the children, remind the priests, hello, this is a very bad thing to do, and I say don't do it. This is what a morally responsible being in charge of the human race would do to protect us. And it doesn't have anything to do with free will or the choices you make. It has to do with the guy in charge exercising moral responsibility. If you see that a crime or a terrible thing is about to take place, if you're a moral being, you don't let people do bad things. If you know they're going to do it, if you're in a position to stop doing it, you say, if you have a friend of yours, right, and you know that he's going to deal drugs,
right,
and you really love this friend of yours and you don't want him to have a bad life and end up in jail or end up getting shot or anything like that, would you, you want to stand in his way and say, look, man, you're my friend, I care about you, you can't do this, you're going to mess up your life. Now, he may go on and do his thing, but again, you're not all powerful but the guy in charge supposedly is. You can't put the thought in his head to straighten himself up. You can try, but again, an all-powerful being, we're talking all-powerful, should be able to, say, especially if something where children are going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't let that happen. That's the problem I have.
And and what you said, that's understandable because again, I have a lot of issues, and that's what makes me study hard. That's what makes me go harder into what I do. And the number one reason I would never say that there's not a God is because of my personal experience.
Well, we understand that. Yeah,
and that's just my personal experience, and I mean, I can't let anybody take that away from me. Now, what you're saying is real because on the court, I sat down, I knelt down, I'm like, man, how can you let this happen? But again, everything that has happened in the world thus far, I mean, it was bad, but the outcome was like, okay. And
well, I don't.
But still, again, it goes back to being all-powerful and all-knowing.
Well,
he should be able to figure out a better way to make the world a happy place without having children molested to get there.
Yeah, and again, I don't.
There's got to be a better way to get there.
I don't think any of the victims of any of these events would say, "Oh, well, the outcome has turned out okay." But listen, we appreciate your call, but we've been a long time. We got a lot of people lined up. We're here every week, every Sunday at 4:30, and feel free to watch us again and call us back, and we'll talk to you some more. But we got to get some more callers. We got a lot of people waiting.
I just want to get understanding, man. That's all. Like I said, I'm not knocking. I won't judge. I just want to get understanding.
Well, we appreciate your call. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you later.
All right.
Okay. Jake is on line 2. Let's see what he has to say. Hi, Jake, you're on the air.
All right, cool. A little something about that prior call.
Yes.
My feeling on that is I'd like to ask you guys if y'all value y'all's ability to make decisions.
Well?
As human beings.
Of course.
Yes.
Okay, well, I would just like to ask you what kind of a world would it be if God created us all to where we would all do the right things at all times? Basically, we would not have the ability to make decisions.
Well,
would you not agree?
I don't know about that. Well, for one thing...
no, I wouldn't agree.
Well, first off...
What's your feeling?
My feeling... Well, actually, why don't you start, and I'll go ahead and...
A lot of people will always bring up the idea that you have to have choices and freedom to choose things, and if you choose good and you choose bad, that shows something about yourself. While that is true, there could be a God who would give you the choices only to do good things. When I got up this morning, I had the choice to go to the meeting, to sleep in.
That's not free will.
Sure it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I have the choice to go to the meeting, go see a movie, sleep in, go to work, go out with friends. My free will is not being hindered all that much because I don't have the choice to kill my neighbors.
And the fact that you can't say that. That does not make sense.
Why?
What
do you mean?
You know that there is a choice to do bad, right?
But
He has given us the choice, the ability. He has given us a mind to make that decision.
And why would an all-loving God give us the choice to do bad? See, here's the thing. The term free will doesn't mean that you have to have this infinite variety of choices, right? Yeah. It only means that you have to...
He has given us that, though.
No, he hasn't. No, I do not have the choice to fly. He is stopping my free will.
Yeah.
I wanted to fly when I got up this morning. Yeah. He is holding me down.
Yeah. Can't flap your arms and fly no matter how hard you try.
So.
If you might want to, but does that mean... Yeah.
That actually isn't the first reason I called, but anyway.
Yeah. But anyway, it doesn't have to... The point that we're trying to make to the previous caller is that this really has nothing to do with the free will argument. In fact, I think free will is a red herring in this regard. What we're talking about here is God as a morally responsible being. Sure, God could give, let's say God sets everything up to where everybody has the evil choices have to be present, otherwise people don't have true free will. If that's how you want to define free will, okay, I don't agree with that definition, but we'll go with that. Still, if you're a morally responsible being, okay, a moral being will prevent harmful things from happening if they are capable of doing so. If they know what's going to happen, things that are going to cause great destruction, and they are in a position to stop it, if you're a moral being, that's what you're going to do.
I can understand what you're saying somewhat, yeah. I can agree with that somewhat.
Okay.
I actually don't believe or agree with a lot of the stuff that is taught in the Christian faith. Mm-hmm. But my main thing is why I called, if both of you do not believe in a God or some sort of higher being, is that correct?
That's fair to say. Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's fair to say, yeah.
Okay. how would you explain the existence of matter to begin with? Like, something has to have been greater than, like, humans. I think it's a little conceited, actually.
Well, you know,
think that you... Well, go ahead. Well, go ahead.
I'm just going to say that, you know, a fundamental tenet of physics is that matter can neither be created nor destroyed. Okay? I mean, you cannot create or destroy matter. It's always there. When an object is destroyed, the matter
well, then you
itself...
can't explain it with your science, can you?
Can't explain what?
The creation of matter. There's got to
We
be
just said the matter can't be created or destroyed.
You're making an assumption that matter was created. Why is that? Have you ever seen anything actually created out of absolutely nothing?
Did we just lose our caller?
Apparently we did.
What happened, control room?
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, well.
I'm sorry, did we just lose our caller? We didn't mean for that to happen. Sorry. Sometimes we get weird technical phone problems in here. But just to reinforce the point, the same question, if you say, oh, well, I don't have an explanation, I can't provide one for how matter got here, so there's got to be a God. Well, what you don't realize is the same question immediately applies to this God you propose. How did God get here?
Yeah.
You know, what created God? Then we get to the classic problem of infinite regress.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is why scientists often say that positing a God as the explanation for why there's a universe doesn't really answer the question, because all you've done is you've taken this big mystery and you've created another mystery to explain it.
Yeah.
Now, all of the questions that you're posing about the existence of the universe that you're trying to use God to answer can be applied to God. How did he get here? You know, where did his matter come from? Is he made of matter at all?
When did he start?
If not, what's he made of? Some sort of weird spiritual substance? Well, then what's that made of? And how did that come into existence?
Yeah.
It's no real answer. Did we lose, and we lost Diane as well?
Apparently.
Who's on the phone now? Okay. Tom's on one, and I guess we're still getting the name of whoever's on line two. So that's how we look at that. It's true, science doesn't have every single possible question you could think to ask answered right now, but the methods of science are the most reliable that exist for answering those kinds of questions. Let's see what Tom on line one has done. Hi, Tom.
Hi, guys.
Hey, you're on the air.
Good show today.
Thank you. We'll try not to let something happen to the phone line here.
Oh, hope not. Somebody mentioned the Thomas Gospels a little while ago. I wanted to clear that up.
Yeah.
They were floating around, as were a lot of different documents in the very earliest days.
Yeah.
Many things were eliminated at the council that Constantine called to decide what was going to make the cut into the new, what we now call the New Testament.
Yeah.
Gospels of Thomas were eliminated then. The principal reason for the elimination of those was because they were highly Gnostic, which is, you could do a whole show on Gnosticism if you want. I should say up front, I'm an atheist and an agnostic.
Okay.
Folks, if you want to believe in God, go outside, look up in the sky during the day, and you will see a God you can believe in, and it's called Ra.
There you go. Yeah. Riding his chariot across the sky.
Yep.
Yeah, and that God was worshipped and adored for many centuries by a great civilization.
Yep.
Sure.
And that God and his father, Amun and Ra, gave rise, in many respects, to the Hebrew mythology of God the Father.
Right.
In the time when the Hebrews were in Egypt, they were not monotheists. Monotheism came about among the Hebrews about 250 years before Jesus. And this was due to the Hellenistic, the Greek influence, due to the classical thinking of the great Greek thinkers. But if you guys really want to, not you guys, but if your listeners and viewers want to believe in God, go outside and look at Ra. There's a God.
Yep.
Yeah. Jeff D., our former host, always used to talk about, hey, if I went to some South Sea island, right, and met a bunch of, islanders with their totem pole, and they said, that's our God, well,
I'm a believer.
I would be a theist as far as that God's concerned. Now, we might disagree with the islanders about the magical properties their totem pole might contain, but as far as their God actually being a thing that exists, knock, knock, yeah, sure, you could believe in it. Yeah, really good point, and I like your suggestion about doing a Gnosticism. I think that's Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of Gnosticism that has always been with us, and it actually it was called by Christians the first heresy, but it actually predates Christianity. It was a heresy among the Jews at the time too.
Right.
Gnosticism arrived from the East. And also another thing for your listeners, you guys talked about Confucius as being the originator of the Golden Rule. Well, actually, it cropped up a number of different places, a number of different times. The Sermon on the Mount is classic classic Pharisaic philosophy of that age. And most contemporary religious scholars now believe that Jesus was probably an intellectual Pharisaic rabbi who spoke 3 languages, Aramaic, Greek, and Hebrew, and he was also a political leader, because you have to consider if all this the stuff that was written, if any of it is true, if the man was crucified, that pretty much tells you that he was a political rebel, because the crucifixion was a torture and execution perpetrated by the Romans for political prisoners. There were a number of different ways to be killed, and crucifixion was for political rebels. He was probably a zealot.
So sedition was, and treason, right. Right. What do you think about, I have heard from a specific source also that another line of thought among some scholars is that, you mentioned the Greek influence.
Right.
And I've heard it speculated that Jesus is thought to have been something like a Stoic philosopher, that he may have studied some of their philosophy that came down from Greece and applied that to his worldview.
That may be, but everything in what has survived as the Gospels now indicates that he was a classic Pharisaic rabbi. So if there was an influence, it was the Pharisees ahead of him.
Okay. Good. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Well, I think that's. I want to read up more on some of this, and I think that's a really good idea that you had. That perhaps just to devote a show to this subject would be pretty enlightening.
Yeah. Well, you've done a lot on predestination, and some of the same arguments and themes keep coming up.
Right.
But you also might want to do a show on the early Christian church and how it was that the New Testament, in quotes, came into being. And what got eliminated, why certain things made the cut. Who was invited to the meeting? Basically, all the bishops in the world were invited. It's fascinating history.
Yeah, we touched upon it just sketchily. It was a 200-year process, literally. And with the very first of the canon, I think the Muratorian canon was the first New Testament canon that was released, and which contained 7 fewer books than the current one has. And then there was 200 years worth of debate over other books. The criterion being which they thought were genuinely divinely inspired. And even the ones that ended up making the final canon that we have today, the New Testament we have today, there was still dispute about, no, we don't think that should be in there, and this other one should.
What they wanted to find, most scholars think now, that there are some basic things that the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John needed to say. Whoever made the cut needed to mention the birth, the death, and the resurrection, especially the resurrection. This was crucial. If you're going to worship a god, the guy can't be killed. This is why the Romans and the Jews, they were Jewish, of course, anyway, but the non-Christian Jews and Romans would argue that these people are crazy. They're worshiping a dead man. How can he be a god? And that's why it was widely believed in the early days that Christians were atheists, because they were worshiping a dead man. It was really obvious to everybody except those, and you get the impression, oh my God, that Romans used to think that maybe they're drinking blood and eating the flesh, and that's because it was happening metaphorically. But they would insist that no, it's not metaphor, it's real. However, of course, it was metaphorical. It was wine and bread. Anyway, enough history. Enjoy your show. And,
thank you very much.
And I will see you continue to enjoy.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely take your suggestion into consideration because they're good ideas.
Thank you.
All right, well, you take care.
All right.
Okay.
I want you to drink the blood of Jesus. Drink. Drink it all. Good. Now, eat the flesh of God. Eat. Excellent. Excellent.
Okay.
And the punchline is, oh well, never mind. All the same. So take Mike on 2 first, right? Okay. All right, we'll see how to. Mike, you're on the air.
Hi.
How you doing?
I was just calling. You know, what makes this world a rainbow of different ideas, different aspects, is the idea of different people thinking different ways. So I just have a couple of questions. I'm not here to argue with you. I'm getting these huge. I just maybe like you to comment on a couple of things on what you think and some of my experiences and some of the thoughts that I have regarding to all the way back to that first guy that called and when I was listening about the he's a devout Christian, and that that's fine. So my question is, do you believe how many people are in this world? About 6 billion. Is that about right?
I think we just passed the 6 billion mark. Right?
Yeah, somewhere around it. We broke that last year. Well, my idea is, doesn't everybody in the world have the same ideas about emotion? Have we all felt hate? Do you believe that? Everyone?
I think emotional responses are
fear,
consistent.
Love, fear, love, happiness, sadness, lust, greed, envy. A lot of those things are common throughout human civilization. We've always, and what do people do with those emotions? They act upon them, right? This is the idea, free will, blah, blah, blah. We act upon emotions. We don't, we see something in front of us, and the idea of it sparking emotions in us is, and how we comprehend those emotions. Now, animals, they have very basic emotions. We're talking about, fear, flight or fight. They learn how to be strong to live. They learn how to run fast to live. So their ideas are different. However, we have comprehension. We're able to control these emotions, and we're able to make logical, sometimes illogical rationalities and decisions based on these emotions. And there's really only a core of emotions that the human civilization even experienced. Do you agree with me so far?
Well, I agree that emotional responses, in our species do tend to be...
not the responses to the emotions, just the emotions.
Well, what I mean, emotions being responses to stimuli.
Okay.
Right? You get stimuli from your environment, and you will have you'll respond to it that way. Yes, I think that we are... I think across the board you will find a consistent pattern. Sure.
Sure. Okay. I just you can comment on it. My next question is about the idea of creation of matter here, and the idea of what is common in all, and I mean all. Are either one of you scientists?
We're not professional scientists. No.
Okay. What is common in all, and I mean every single living organism on this earth? Complex carbon chains. Do you agree? They're complex
DNA,
carbon
you
chains.
mean? Well, we all have DNA, right?
No, not DNA. I'm talking about...
Even more basic.
Yeah,
simple sugars and stuff.
The proteins and the sugars.
I'm talking about the element of carbon.
Okay.
Now, scientists and researchers, I know you're out there. You read information. We've been able to take live tissue, develop an embryo, put it in an embryo, develop another life based, cloning and all that. We've been able to manipulate DNA. Literally take pieces out of it to try to change genetic patterns in human living life.
Sure.
You agree?
Yeah.
That's all been. There is one thing. Just one thing that scientists aren't even close. Not even close. And if you have any comments on it, please let me know. Maybe you have more information than I do in doing, right? They know how to put together the complex carbon chains. Why? Because we have polymers. We have plastics. Those are carbon chains, and, we have advanced plastics. Scientists and chemists out there are doing amazing things at the atomic level on how to put elements together to give us what we're,
Okay, so what's the one thing?
The one thing is the ability to reproduce and live. That's the one thing. And a doctor, when he pronounces a man dead in an emergency room, do the cells in that body keep reproducing after he calls them dead? How does the doctor know when life leaves? When life? Now they can put the complex carbon chains together all they want. They know how much oxygen they need, but why can't we produce life?
We're getting there.
You think so? Where?
There's a couple weeks ago, doctors or scientists produced the actual polio virus from scratch, mixing together the right chemicals and doing all this kind of stuff, and poof, polio comes out.
Now you're talking about the one in Australia. It was done in England.
I guess
with
so.
I don't recall.
Cambridge.
Yeah.
Now that polio vaccine, they did not start from innate elements. They began from just,
Well, what do you mean?
dead elements.
Are you suggesting that like the cloned animals that have been produced aren't really alive?
No, I'm saying they have to take living tissue. They have to take living cells in order to clone. Already be alive.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
But
I'm saying the idea of life. Now, the idea of creation of matter, I'm somewhat an engineer.
There's a slight difference here, though. If I want to build a table or a bookcase, I don't necessarily need to go out and grow the trees to do it. I can take trees that are already there, cut them down, chop them up, and build a tree out of it.
Yeah, but what made the
Scientists
tree grow?
don't necessarily have to go out and take a whole bunch of carbon, a whole bunch of oxygen, put them together in the right pieces, and then put it together into a...
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They know how to put those together, though. They know the complex.
You're basically saying, where did all this organic stuff come from in the first place? That's what you're getting at, right?
I'm saying when people say, well, God created Earth, and the idea of matter, you're right, matter can neither be created nor destroyed. What if he just redistributed matter and created life?
Well, you're still, are you talking about God now?
I'm talking about the idea of a higher being.
Well, then my question is, where did that higher being come from? This all gets back to the same thing I mentioned before.
Have you ever been lonely?
What's that got to do with anything?
I'm talking about emotions. I'm talking about a guy up there.
Sure,
all the religions saying that we are the image of God. We have been created in the liking.
Well,
of
hang
God.
on. Let's stay on one thing at a time.
Okay.
Just again, if you're going to posit some higher being or supernatural or divine force as the solution for the thing that you can't determine how it got here, that's all well and good, but just keep in mind that all of the questions that you were asking about the thing you were trying to find out why it exists can still be applied to your God. And it gets a lot more difficult to determine what those things are when you're getting into some sort of supernatural, purely speculative realm than it is when you're just talking about like amino acids, sugars, basic proteins, complex, the chains of DNA. I mean, those are at least things that we can study on a physical level.
Yeah,
the point is, no, science hasn't answered every single mystery the universe holds.
It never will. It never will.
Well, then fine.
True knowledge is knowing that you know absolutely nothing. We may, here on Earth, we may actually only know the very tip of Einstein's E is equal to mc squared is not exactly correct. Newtonian mechanics is not exactly correct.
Well, we know that quantum physics is a thing that throws, the monkey wrench in it all. But the point is though, yes, we don't know everything, but
we never will.
But the honest thing to say when you don't know the answer to a question is, I don't know. It's not.
That's all I wanted you to say.
But it's not the proper procedure to then say, I don't know the answer to this question, so I'll make one up that sounds good. That's what religion seeks to do, and we disagree with that in principle.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But at least you say, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that we don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry if we ever gave the impression that we're up here masquerading as infallible, all-knowing, Gandalfs.
Or that humans know everything. Absolutely not.
Yeah, we're just regular guys.
And the last guy that called about tar, just one comment on that.
About what?
About the going outside and looking at the sun and seeing God.
Sure.
The idea of that is the idea of communication, and there's tribes in South America and over in the Far East that wake up and look at a mountain. That's all they see. They've traveled maybe 20 miles from their home their entire life. They're ignorant. And ignorance, there's nothing wrong with ignorance, but it exists. So when you wake up and see a beautiful mountain, the sun coming over it, and that's all you know, it's the biggest thing in your world, they're going to worship it. Then they see the sun. So the idea of people worshiping the sun is ignorance. That's all it was.
Sure, yeah.
So as we gain
but the more we learn, though, and the more we fill in gaps, right? I mean, when you have knowledge about a thing that you previously didn't have knowledge about, it's no reason to maintain the ignorance. In fact, maintaining an ignorant point of view when a particular question has been answered is just not correct. You know,
right.
It's just not rational to do that. But listen, we appreciate your point of view and everything, and we got 15 minutes left, so we want to try to get some more callers in.
Okay.
But thanks a lot for your questions. Take care. 2. Okay. And Barbara is on, so let's see what she has to ask. Hello, Barbara?
Praise the Lord, how you doing?
Fine. Okay, did we get the name right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. We're having some interference on the phones. That's fine.
Oh, okay. My name is Barbara, and I was listening at some of the callers that was calling in.
Sure.
You know, I don't have too much to say, but just, you know, God is good. I mean, because the simple fact is, I know that He brought me out of some things that man could do, you know. I was in the state hospital. You know, I had a nervous breakdown. I was on Mellaril, Thorazine, Cogentin, Haldol, all kinds of antidepressant medication, and also carrying a baby all at the same time. I was pregnant.
Ouch.
And I mean, I couldn't even bathe myself, couldn't feed myself, couldn't clothe myself, but all by the grace of God. I'm out of the state hospital, haven't been in there for 20 years now. I'm out living independent, got my own place. God, I don't have to even take that antidepressant medication no more. God healed my mind, regulated my mind, gave me a new mind, and now I'm running on. I have also a TV ministry that called Barb's Praise Ministry, all for the glory of God. So I just want to say, y'all keep up the good work, no matter what. You know, people are going to criticize us. They're going to put us down. They criticized Jesus. They talked about him. They spit on him. You know, they did all kinds of things, but he still stood still and hanged in there for the grace of God for his people.
All right. Well, we're very sorry to hear that, you know, you had to go through everything that you went through, but we're glad that you came out of it. And, you know, I personally think that you're the one who deserves the credit. You clearly worked very hard, and you were a dedicated person. I understand how a lot of people, you know...
Team of doctors helped out.
Yeah, people...
Yeah. I mean, God works through doctors. I'm not saying that it was just, you know, it was God, but God worked through the doctors. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, what about the people that the doctors don't save?
What about the people that doctors don't save?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people now, again, I'm just bringing this up, you know, I'm not trying to argue with you, because I know that you've had But, you know, there are folks who are going through what you went through.
Yes, sir.
And they'll never be healed. And
yes, sir.
And I just don't really understand why God would look upon some people, and as you say he did on you, and heal you, but not choose to heal others when, you know, Christianity tells us that God loves everyone.
Well, he does. He loves everyone. And I'll say that, you know, people that wants to be healed, God will heal them. That's all they have to do is just repent of their sins.
But so there's a condition.
Not everybody gets healed.
But wait a second. There's a condition then. You have to do something for God before God heals you. Is that what you... Because you said if you repent of your sins, then you'll get the healing.
No. I'm saying that even regardless, you know, if you want to be delivered of whatever situation that you need to be delivered from, you know, all you have to do is just ask God to deliver you, and He will heal you. He will deliver you. You know, and I'm a walking testimony of that.
But you know, some people, ma'am, you know, some people are prayed for and yet they don't heal.
Well, it's because maybe they're not having the belief, you know.
I understand.
This is also a belief wall. This is also a faith wall. You have to have faith to believe that God is going to do whatever you ask Him to do. He says in His Word, we have not because we ask not. He says, anything in my name, ask me, and I shall bring it to pass.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your call and letting us know, and thanks very much for watching the program.
Okay, then. You have a blessed evening.
You take care.
Bye-bye.
Now, Barbara.
I pray to Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci. 2 reasons. First of all, I think he's a good actor, okay? To me, that counts. Second, he looks like a guy who can get things done.
Now, Barbara's tremendously sincere, right? But she's a great example of. There's a recent the Skeptic's Dictionary, which is a great website, skeptic.com, and where the guy talks about how God always wins.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you have a person who's predisposed to belief in the first place, right? Anytime something good happens for them, okay, it's God smiling down upon them, God looking favorably upon them and healing them through his love, etc., etc. But when something really bad happens to a person, well, it's either because, God is trying to send a message, he's trying to teach you a lesson about something, or you just weren't being devout enough, which I find really disturbing.
Yeah.
I find really disturbing because, again, she was saying if those people prayed and didn't get healed, then they weren't believing hard enough. Yeah. And that's a real problem I have. This whole idea of God sitting up on his throne going, well, you call that a prayer? Come on. Sorry, not good enough. So, yeah. Doesn't quite work for me. Who's next? We're just piling in the mics today. We have another mic on 3 in the last 9 minutes of the show. Mike?
Yeah, hi.
You're on the air. How you doing?
Hi, guys. I'm doing okay. I was checking out some more websites, and I was looking at some pantheist websites, and I wanted to get your take on some of the pantheists and their philosophies and what your take on them is.
Okay. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, pantheism is an idea that's pretty much the universe and all in it represents God in some form, right?
Yeah, basically. And one is that apparently there's a lot of different brands of pantheism, a lot of different flavors. They've got some people call themselves scientific pantheists.
We had a guy like that on our mailing list a few years ago.
Yeah.
We had a guy who was plugging for what he called scientific pantheism.
Yeah.
On our mailing list, which he should have been on the ask list, but. And I think that the general criticism that was voiced was, if what you're saying is versus God, then it's just, the question becomes, what's the point, right? I mean, all you've done is you've come up with a new word for universe.
Yeah.
And we already have a perfectly good word for universe. It's universe.
Well, I think that a lot has to do with some of the connotations that people put together with these words. God has a lot of connotations to it. Mm-hmm. Universe has a lot of connotations. A lot of them also equate nature, God and nature.
Sure.
And I guess the thing is, one of the things they mentioned was the rejection of the concept of a anthropocentric God. Mm-hmm. That the idea that humans maintain a special position with regard to God, or that they are the pinnacle of creation or the center of creation. Mm-hmm. And that God has a will and a character that is similar to the human will and character. Mm-hmm. And that this was the kind of concept that they were rejecting. Mm-hmm. And the problem, I guess, with universe is that people tend to, when they talk about the universe, they tend to think of it as something very distant, something that is kind of, I guess, carrying from the scientific developments of the classical physics, that we tend to think of that the universe being kind of mechanistic, sort of like a dead clockwork mechanism that just sort of runs automatically and just doesn't have an innate I guess you would say character or life force or intelligence. Mm-hmm. And that the pantheists like to think that there is an innate intelligence or force, but that it is not necessarily a human one.
And that's basically why I would have a problem with pantheists and calling the universe God, because I don't think there is some kind of underlying innate intelligence in, this cup here.
Well,
there's no intelligence in the sun that I know of. It is just, that's what it does.
Yeah.
So. I think that what's behind pantheism is what is behind, so many spiritual movements. Again, there is a desire, and religion too. There is a desire, I think, that it comes from childhood, that for us to think that you're being looked after. And so if the universe is this big machine chugging along, working on gravity and physics and making galaxies happen and others vanish and if it's all just a big impersonal clockwork thing, then then we don't have anyone looking after us, and that's, some people I think just have an emotional problem with that whole idea. And so what any form of spirituality or religion seeks, whether it is mainstream like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, or whether it is more of contemporary New Age pantheist or just generic theism that I see a lot of people practicing, really it all gets back down to this kind of atavistic desire, that we're being looked after, that we're not really alone. You see, even alien believers, like these UFO guys who've called our show the last few times, even they have, I think, the same thing behind us. The folks who say, no, the brilliant alien, advanced alien race that's looking after us, they're just waiting for us to grow up a little bit more, and then they will welcome us into the universal fold of advanced species and et cetera, et cetera. It gets back to that. It all gets back to there's someone out there taking care of us. We've got it. Because if we're alone, that's just too depressing and frightening to contemplate.
Yeah, well, that brings up a second question I wanted to ask.
Okay, because we got 4 minutes and want to take another call.
Whether or any atheists might have had anything that might be described as a spiritual experience.
Well, since I don't use that terminology, I don't know that I would describe anything that I've had as a spiritual experience. I can point to times in my life of great happiness and joy, and other times less so. Times when I felt feelings of accomplishment. My history runs the gamut just like any other person. What about you?
Well, we had the old host to this show from years and years ago, and the producer a little bit later on, he kind of quit out of the group for a little bit to go on some kind of spiritual quest or something like that.
Yeah.
He's back now. I haven't really talked to him as to what happened.
Oh, he had that big car wreck.
Oh, well, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
He totaled the car, and so that was the...
Okay, I didn't know about that.
No, he was at a concert, which I'm sure was completely brilliant, and there was this wonderful time, and that was when he decided... Well, but he holds on to the idea that one can be an atheist and be spiritual, and there's been discussion with that, but that's the cool thing about being atheist, is that nobody has to believe the same thing when you get... We all agree that we don't believe in God, but beyond that, you'll find people of all different philosophies and political backgrounds.
Leaves the field wide open.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So we appreciate your call. We're going to try, like I said, to get one more caller here in the last 2 minutes. So
thanks.
Take care. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right. Is that Keisha on 2? Well, let's see what she has to say. And depending on how long this takes, she might be our last caller of the day. So let's... Keisha, hi, you're on the air.
Yes. Okay. I was flipping through and I disagree with what y'all were saying.
Okay.
Because I'm a strong believer in God myself. My mama brought me up in church.
Mm-hmm.
My grandma brought my mama up in church. Really, everybody in my family was brought up in church.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not agree with what y'all are doing right here. I think, okay, it's fine that y'all don't believe in God. That's y'all.
Mm-hmm.
That's. I look at it like this. That's y'all, not me. But it's the point of how can y'all sit up here on TV and try to tell people? Well, it looks like to me that y'all trying to tell people that their beliefs is wrong.
Well, we live in a free society, and people who have different opinions are allowed to speak their mind. We have a constitution that protects that people who have non-mainstream points of view or unpopular points of view, they're still allowed to say their say. We're not trying to tell everybody that we're not trying to tell anyone that you shouldn't believe the thing that you want to believe in.
Yeah. It's another perspective.
Yeah, but a lot of people like yourself who don't understand why it is that people might not believe in God, well, part of the reason we have our show is to explain that. Because some people are curious. Some people really are curious, particularly Christians. They want to know, why don't you believe? Why wouldn't you believe in God? And we're here to explain that. That's all we're here to do. So... maybe if you watch us some more and you'll have a better understanding. We don't expect you to agree with us, but maybe you'll understand where we're coming from more.
Because, my little cousin...
Keisha, I know. I'd love to talk to you more, but we are flat out of time. This is our last 30 seconds. But thanks for calling, okay? And thanks for watching. Bye-bye. All right, well, there we are. That's another Sunday gone. We hope everybody has a very safe and fun Labor Day. And we'll be here every Sunday, 4:30 p.m., reruns of this show every Tuesday, 4:30 p.m. right here on Channel 10. Thank you again, Ashley. Thanks to our great crew, everybody who turned up. Atheist-community.org is the website. And Christians, we don't hate anyone. We just think you're wrong. Bye-bye, and thanks for watching again. See you next time.
Enjoy your Labor Day weekend.
Yes. Bye-bye.